Hey everyone, it's Josh here. I'm here with a special guest today, my dad. This is Jim. He has been an auto mechanic for
45 years.
45 years. He is a fellow glamper. They have a 38-foot travel trailer. He's got a nice Chevy 2500 diesel he tows it with. He's super stoked about that. But today, we are here to do some work on our motorhome. We have a Class A. It's a Forest River. It is a GT5, and it's got the Ford V10 engine. And we're gonna do an oil change today as a regularly scheduled maintenance. And it is starting to sleet right now, even though it was 65 2 days ago. So hopefully it'll stop soon and we can get to work. And we're gonna bring you along so that you know if you wanna do this yourself, what to do. So we'll be right back with more information and the actual oil change. All right, so I'm just gonna be honest with you. This is the first time I've changed the oil on this RV. We've had this now, this is our 4th season. We've only put enough miles on it to change the oil once. I have changed the oil in the generator every year, and this year I'm gonna do a tune-up. We'll do a separate video for that. But before you get started with an oil change, there's a few things you need to make sure that you do in order to do it properly. So the first thing is you wanna run the engine. So we let the engine run for about 15 minutes, and you wanna do that so that the oil gets warm, and this way it comes out faster. It also comes out more. You wanna get as much of the old, dirty oil out as you can. So running the engine takes care of that, right?
Yep. And it also helps get all the contaminants out along with it.
Helps get all the contaminants out. And so, the other thing is you want to check to see where everything's at. So we already looked under the hood. We found where the dipstick is. We know where the outlet to pour the oil in, or the inlet, I guess you should say. And then we know where the drain plug is and the filter. I did some research, and so I'm going to use the Mobile One. It is the 5W20, a full synthetic. So hopefully, it's better protection for the engine. It should last longer and just be better overall for the motor. And then the filter I'm using is the Ford, it's Motorcraft. It is a SL820S. This is the factory one. I think that's typically recommended is to use.
Yeah. If it is a Ford product, by all means try to use a Ford filter. GM, General Motors, try to use an AC Delco. Other times dealers will sometimes give you a hassle if we go back for warranty work. If you don't use factory parts, they will try to tell you avoided the warranty. So try to use factory parts where possible.
Yeah, and I've also done a bunch of research, and I saw in a bunch of the forums that Fram and a few other ones people just didn't have good luck with, or weren't really happy with the performance. So good things about this, and yeah, you definitely don't want to do anything that will void your warranty, especially on something that costs this much. So with that, we're going to get started on the oil change. I think the first step is going to be letting the oil out, right? Yep. All right, well, so we're going to get under the RV. And the other thing that I didn't mention earlier is that there's a lot of space under here, but we actually use the front jacks. This is the hydraulic system, so we've got plenty of strength to lift the front of the RV up off the ground to give us a little bit of space underneath to make it a little bit easier on us. So if you have the automatic leveling system, might be a good idea to do that too. Definitely something to look out for. Here's the oil plug there on the bottom of the oil pan. This V10, and this is Jim here with your expert advice.
So before you get started, a couple things. We are under the vehicle. You want to, of course, locate the drain plug. Make sure you have the right size socket or wrench for it. Try, if at all possible, use a 6-point socket or wrench. 12-point will work, but sometimes it will round off the corners of the drain plug. So if at all possible, try to use a 6-point. This one we actually have is a 16mm size drain plug. Also, we have a drain pan. You want to do a little bit of research, make sure how much oil is going to be coming out of the drain, and have a container large enough to catch all of that. So because we have 7 quarts, we want to make sure we have a large enough drain pan. So we are going to loosen the drain plug. We're not going to put the pan under it just yet. We want to make sure we can actually get the drain plug loose. Oil's not going to come gushing out until we physically get it loose. Make sure you're doing the lefty-loosey. Okay, it actually came loose pretty easy. Once you get it loose, and if you do notice too, you don't have to, but we are wearing work gloves. Because this is actually over top of the axle, we are putting the drain pan here. This is going to be a little difficult to get to, but we're going to try to do our best. So we're going to reach up, turn the drain plug counterclockwise with our fingers. This is where the gloves come in handy, because if the oil is hot, you don't want to burn your fingers. There we go, we get the drain plug out. That's where it's handy to have your paper towel ready, so you can set your drain plug on.
Shop towels are a great thing to keep around your RV. I'm sure a lot of you already have those, but a lot more absorbent than a regular paper towel.
Yeah, it's very, very handy when you have an RV. Have a set of tools handy, a roll of heavy-duty towels. You never know what you may do at a campsite. Something may show up, or even something you might need to do. Very handy to have a basic set of tools and some wipes.
I love wipes and gloves. I just found some nice rubber gloves on Amazon. I'll post a link in the description below. That they're a little thicker than regular, which I'm really a big fan of, especially when dealing with stuff like this, or like the poop tube and stuff, the stinky slinky, if you will.
So normally we would put the drain pan on the ground. As I stated, the drain is located just above the axle, so we're trying to avoid getting oil all over parts of the axle, and that, plus not helping it not to splash around. Plus, it is also a little bit windy today. If you're doing this where there's a little bit of breeze, you have to be careful. When the oil starts to slow down, the wind will catch the oil stream and kind of blow it around. So that's something to kind of watch for. And of course, you want to let the oil drain as completely as possible. Give it a chance to get most of that out of there. You'll never get all of the oil out. Some of it does stay up in the engine, but the more you get out, the better chance you have more clean oil back in there, and it's better for your engine. We are fortunate that the oil filter is close by. It's at an easy location to reach. You may want to do a little research before you start the job to see where the oil filter is located. Make sure you have the appropriate tool to take the oil filter off.
Yeah, I find researching the job before you do it, and there's obviously, like, just like this, we hope this is helpful for you. There's a lot of videos out there on YouTube and on the internet that can help you and you get acclimated to it. And then of course there's a ton of people that probably have the same engine or setup that you do that have already done this and hopefully have made the mistakes before you need to, so they can, you know, help you figure it out before you do it.
While we are waiting for the oil to drain, one thing to note, of course, this is our drain plug that we took out. There usually will be some type of a rubber seal or maybe a copper gasket around there. You want to make sure that that stays on the drain plug. If it looks like it's torn or damaged, you want to make sure you replace it. You can either buy just a new seal, or a whole drain plug will come with a new seal. But you want to make sure that seal is in good shape before you go to put that back up. Sometimes it will stick to the base of the oil pan, so you want to make sure that you do not put it up there without some type of a seal on it. You do not want to have a leak after you get all your fresh oil back in.
That one looks pretty good, right?
Yep. Generally you'll get about 5-6 oil changes before they really start to get weak, where you may want to change the drain plug or the seal.
And like I mentioned earlier, this is our second oil change. We have just over 8,000 miles on this RV and this engine. It's a little windy today. I'm trying to get paper towel on the ground here, or shop towel. The oil is just barely dripping out now, so we're gonna probably move the oil pan out and get our plug back up in there. Very carefully lower this to the ground so you don't spill.
Okay, so we have the drain plug. It's clean, everything back in. Make sure you insert it very carefully. Make sure the threads start properly. You're going to turn it in a clockwise direction. If it's tight, you always want to make sure, take it back out, make sure you have the threads lined up properly. You never want to force a drain plug in if the threads aren't in properly.
Yeah, I know from experience. I had a vehicle that the dealership didn't put the drain plug back in right and lost a bunch of oil, and thankfully my engine didn't burn up, but we were able to remedy it, but it could have been very bad for the motor.
Okay. You always want to put just a little bit of torque on the drain plug. You really don't want to put your whole body weight on it. This actually has a steel drain pan, which is fine. A lot of today's cars have an aluminum oil pan, and if you put a lot of torque on those, you'll hear a quick snap and you actually damage the threads within just a couple seconds. So just a light bit of torque is all you want. You want to do a nice job of wiping off any excessive oil, because after we fill this and run this. We're going to look under here and make sure we don't have any leaks. Okay. Now we're ready to move to the oil filter. Is this our drain pan?
All right, so now we're going to move on to the actual the oil filter. We've got an oil filter wrench. I don't know if this one's any specific information about it.
There's many types of oil filter wrenches. This is what we call a strap wrench. It is designed to make sure there's a couple sizes. There's smaller for smaller diameter filters, large ones for Ford uses large diameter. You're going to put it on the filter, and you want to make sure as you turn it the proper direction, it will tighten against the filter. There are cup style that actually match the filter. There's spring-loaded ones. You will run across the filter from time to time that will be very stubborn, and a strap wrench might not get it off. So be prepared to have a couple filter wrenches.
You want to place your oil pan underneath of the oil filter because oil will definitely come out. Be mindful of any hoses or anything that's around there. This one's...
You can use your wrench to get it loose to where you can use your hands. Get your wrench out of the way. We actually placed a little paper towel over top of some of the axle because we may drip some. First you want to loosen it, let it start to drip a little bit. Make sure your drain pan is capable of catching it. Let some of the oil that's residual there kind of drain out a little bit. And then we'll finish taking it off.
Making anybody else have to go to the bathroom or just me?
Depending upon how the filter is attached to the engine, if it's attached sideways, most of the oil will drain out. This one actually, of course, goes straight up, so oil will stay in the filter some. As we loosen it, we're going to try to keep the filter upright, and then we'll dump it out into the drain pan. It's always nice to have a paper towel in your hand to catch the extra oil. Okay, now we got our towel in our hand, we'll turn it the rest of the direction.
We'll pause if you need to go to the bathroom, it's fine. We'll come back and watch the rest.
Okay, so the oil filter is loose. Let the extra oil kind of trickle down.
How much oil does the oil filter itself hold?
The oil filter, depending upon the size, this particular one will probably hold about half a quart.
Okay.
Some of the smaller ones, a lot of the newer cars have a pretty small filter. They're about maybe half of a pint. One of the very important things about an oil filter, if you notice we flipped it over, these are the threads that attach to the engine. Here is your seal. Always double check, make sure the seal does come off with the filter. If it sticks up on the housing, if you don't see it, and you put the new filter up, and the new filter will come with the seal, it'll double seal it, and it may seem tight, but once you start the vehicle up, it will blow the seal out and you'll have a huge oil leak. So always verify that the old seal did come off. Sometimes if the person did the oil change prior, did not lightly coat that with oil, it'll be very difficult to come off and the seal will stick up on the housing. So just always verify that the seal did come off. We're actually going to place this.
We're going to put it on the ground for now, and then we'll put that back in the box that the new one came in for disposal.
Okay, so next you want to thoroughly wipe off any excessive oil on the housing. Again, verifying that there's no trace of any of the old seal up there.
He's a scooting man. Having one of these, what are these things called? Dollies? Trolleys?
Yeah. Creepers.
Creepers. If you have kids, not the Minecraft creepers, but you know.
Okay, so here we have the new filter. Okay, I am getting a little dirty. We'll be sure to wipe it off nice and clean once we get it up in there. And you can see that there is a new seal. So we're going to take just a little bit of oil. It's not necessarily that it has to be the clean oil because there's such a light. You just want to put a light film on the seal. You don't want to put any excess. You're just going to do a little bit of a lube on it, and it will make it much easier to come off the next time, and also helps it to get a good seal. So just like the drain plug, you want to make sure that you get this up aligned properly. Make sure the threads match. Make sure you turn it counterclockwise. You can tell how nice and easy it spins. If it spins hard, you don't have the threads lined up. Okay, get it till you can torque it. Sometimes it's awkward to get your hand in a particular spot. You never want to tighten an oil filter with a wrench. Always want to do it just hand tight. Get your best grip up in there. Give it, preferably once the seal contacts, give it about one complete turn is more than sufficient. And again, just like the drain plug, we're going to wipe everything down so we can verify that we have no leaks once we start. And there we have it. The oil filter is on, the drain plug is back in.
Well, that was easy enough. I mean, I'm saying easy, I'm here holding the camera, but you know, I think anybody could kind of do it as long as they kind of followed it step by step. It's really not that difficult, and it's more a matter of taking your time and doing it right. So we're back outside of the RV. We're going to, they have this one is the, like I said, the Forest River GT5. The model of ours is 36B5. It's a bunkhouse with 2 bathrooms. We have the hood up, and if you go up inside here, the oil fill is up here towards the top back of the engine compartment. So it's going to be a challenge to get the oil up in there. We're going to figure this out and hopefully show you the best way to do it. All right, so as I said before, it's way up in there. We have this funnel, this flux funnel here from Walmart. I think I paid $1 for it. It came with this attachment. This actually is threading onto the oil bottle. So we're gonna try this. Is it working?
Yeah. This is not the fastest way to put oil in the vehicle, but under the circumstances, you want to do what works.
Guess the only problem is there's no vent, so you have to let it.
Exactly. Got to let air get back into the bottle.
That sounds like my stomach sometimes. I'm hungry. So one down. So depending upon where you researched, I think the official manual says 6 quarts, but based on everything that we've seen online and read, it says 7. So we're gonna do.
I would suggest it's always best to do 1 less quart. It's not going to harm the engine starting it with 1 quart low. Let it run, fill up the oil filter, let it run through the galleys, shut it off and recheck it. And then if it does need more, add it afterwards. Better to do that than overfill.
All right, well, we put 6 quarts in. We had to get a little creative. We used the spout that came off of the funnel I showed you, and we're able to get it up in there. And then Jim can explain more.
So as we said a little while ago, this does take 7 quarts, but we're going to do 6 and recheck it to make sure. If it needs it, we will add the last quart. One of the things to make sure is that you do put the filler cap back on. Make sure it is snug. A lot of vehicles, if you run it without the cap, the vapor and pressure inside the engine will blow some of the oil back out. So make sure that cap is back on before you start it. Make sure it's secure. And we are now ready to start it and let it run for a few seconds, let the oil circulate through the engine, and then we'll shut it off and recheck the level.
Okay, let's see.
now that we started the vehicle, there's a couple things you want to do real quick. First off, when you start it, some vehicles will make you a little bit of a knocking or tapping sound initially because obviously there's no oil in it. As long as it goes away immediately, that's normal. That is fine. If you notice it knocking or tapping for an extended length of time, make sure you turn it off, recheck your oil level. If you have an oil pressure gauge, you want to watch your gauge, make sure the oil pressure does come up. And then also immediately you want to kind of come out of the vehicle, look under the vehicle, just double check, make sure you do not see any leaks. As we talked about, you possibly double gasketing the filter. If that does happen, you're going to pump all that oil back out relatively quickly, and you want to be able to shut the engine off before you leak a lot of oil. So we have looked under there, everything looks nice and dry. We'll best do a quick check to make sure. Again, that's why we typically pump the oil filter and pump just to make sure we have no leaks. Generally 1 to 2 minutes is more than enough time to get the oil circulating, and then we can shut it down and we'll recheck our oil. So now that we ran it for a few minutes, got the oil to circulate, we got the oil going through the oil filter, and we shut it off. Now we actually want to double check our level. We're going to grab the dipstick. You want to make sure that you do have the oil dipstick. Sometimes transmission dipsticks, most of the time they are red in color, but this one actually in particular does have a yellow transmission dipstick also. So basically what you want to do is, you can see this is quite long of a dipstick because of the size of the vehicle.
Thank you.
What you want to do is look at the base of the dipstick. You will notice there are 2 holes with some hash marks between them. Preferably the top hole is where you want the oil level to be at. That is the full mark. If this does take 7 quarts, that is where the oil level should be. As you notice, we just took it and we wiped it dry. You always want to pull the dipstick out once, get it nice and dry. Physically look at where you should be looking at where the oil level is. Look at both sides. Now we're going to insert it back into the oil fill hole. Do this very carefully, as some dipstick tubes are somewhat long. You don't want to bend your dipstick. Kind of got it in there. You also want to make sure that it gets inserted all the way and seated. If it does not, you're going to get an inaccurate reading. Wait a couple seconds, pull it back out. Very important at this point, once you take it out, you keep it level. So we are going to look at the dipstick. We're going to kind of flip it over. And as you can see, it's a little difficult to see because the oil is very clear. But the oil is at the very bottom dot. I like to look at both sides just to verify. So we do need to add 1 more quart to bring it up to the full mark.
So we put another quart in. We're cleaning off our extra long dipstick.
Okay. So adding the last quart, there's no need to run the vehicle again because of course now the engine oil filter is full, all the galleries are full. So we're basically just kind of topping it off. So we're going to put the dipstick in and recheck the level. Again, carefully guide the dipstick in. Making sure it's seated fully. Wait a couple seconds.
There you go.
Okay, and if you can see that, there it is shiny right to that top dot. We'll flip it over and make sure. Good on both sides. We are full.
Nice.
So we are a true 7 quarts.
See, you heard it here first, folks. The F53 V10 takes 7 quarts. Ignore the rest of the internet. This is we're correct. I think the internet says 7 quarts too. Yeah, that's all right. Well, that was, I think, pretty easy. Took us what, 25-30 minutes total time, and I know here locally I'd saved myself. I think the last time I got the oil change was 150. I was quoted 200 this time. I paid for the 7 quarts of oil and the oil filter myself. I bought the oil filter at Advanced Auto Parts. I bought the oil at Walmart. I think total was like $45 in oil and parts, and then my lovely dad's time. So, you know,
What were you quoted at the dealership?
$200.
Huge savings. If you're handy and comfortable doing so, you can save yourself lots of money.
Yeah, that's $150 that can go towards camping, right? Or go towards some other cool accessory or something that you want for your RV. So one other thing to consider is that you do need to dispose of the old oil properly. So I think you can search your local environmental agency where you live, and they can give suggestions. And that I know if you're a mechanic or something, you probably have options, right, to dispose of oil.
Yes, there are a lot of your the EPA, of course, mandates you do not want to dispose of it on your property. It is a hazardous waste. It is toxic to animals. You make sure animals, of course, don't get it. So you want to put it in a sealed container. Take it to a recycling center. Not always, but sometimes there are shops that will take it from you because they have recycling. But don't be surprised if they might want to charge you a couple dollars. But more than anything, be safe, keep the environment safe. Of course, if you don't, there are fines that you will get fined if that does get out. So you want to make sure you're abiding by all the state laws and regulations.
Yeah, definitely don't want to get fined. Don't want to hurt the environment. We all live on this earth. We want to keep it nice and clean for all of us to enjoy in all of our different RV adventures. So we're glad you're here today. We hope this was helpful for you. Our goal with Glamping for the Weekend is to share some fun, share some educational content, and help you become a better camper / glamper. So my name is Josh. This was my dad, Jim. We're glad you were here. If you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button, hit that like, drop a comment below. New video will be coming out soon on the generator tune-up. I have the Cummins Onan 5500 gas generator. We're going to be doing a tune-up on that, so that video will be coming out here in the next few weeks. And camping season is literally starting in 3 days for us, so super excited. Lots of content to come. Subscribe, stay tuned, share with your friends, and we will hopefully see you in the next video from our next destination. All right, everyone, see you soon.